Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Juan Rodas. Today we have retired legendary goalkeeper Jon Busch. John, how are you?
I'm good, Juan. How are you today,
I'm
bud?
doing good. Thank you, for accepting our invitation. We know you have a family. You have a goalkeeping academy as well. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation today.
Thanks for having me. I'm gonna enjoy it.
No problem. Yeah, thank you. To start off, John, talk to us about being born in Queens, New York. What were your hobbies as a little kid?
Yeah. So I was born in Queens, and we moved all around on the East Coast. I left Queens pretty early. Bopped around the East Coast, got back up to Albany, New York, eventually. But a lot of my hobbies, I played a lot of sports. I had an older brother, younger sister. We were always outside. I played baseball, basketball, hockey, soccer, whatever sport was in that time. We were always outside at that point.
Yeah,
Back then you didn't have video games or anything like that, so everybody was just always outside playing.
for sure. And if you weren't, let's say a professional soccer player, what other profession would you take? Possibly hockey?
I would love to say hockey. I don't know. I mean, I think I was pretty decent, but I don't know if I'm good enough. Obviously, I got a couple buddies who play in the NHL, and I watch them skate, and I'm just like, they're insane. So I'd like to say hockey. I don't know if I would be good enough. I'd
Yeah.
probably be working at Starbucks or something like that, probably instead.
Yeah, and we know sports medicine was very important in your career. Could you talk to us about that? Like, was it really crucial in your legendary career to stay healthy?
Yeah, I think, when I first started, there wasn't a lot of it. There wasn't much talk about, the strength and conditioning or the recovery stuff or any of that. It was just, you're either healthy or you're not healthy kind of thing.
Yeah,
But as time went on and the science became part of it, everything from the off seasons and the strength and conditioning to, what do you do during the season for recovery to, the cryo chambers now and all these advancements that have come about. It was very important, especially as I got older, and I had to realize that, when I hit my mid 30s, it was, you do have an importance of recovery, and
hmm
when you're younger, you don't really think about that as much. But as I got older, it became very important, and it kind of coincided with me getting my knee right after two ACLs on it, and just kind of a long stretch of games that I started with Chicago and then San Jose, and then back to Chicago where all that became very important to maintaining my body and giving me the opportunity to play as many games as I did.
for sure. And transitioning, to your foundation, Saves for Seals.
Mhm.
How did you start that?
So it started around the 10th anniversary of September 11th. So first and foremost, I had a cousin who was a firefighter who died in 9/11. So I knew I wanted to do something, but I just wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go with it. And then not many people know, but I have a brother, and he was in special ops for 13 years. And so I started talking to him a lot about his history, and he started pointing me in different directions. At the end of the day, he sent me an article one day about a Chinook helicopter that got shot down, and majority of those on the helicopter were part of Team Six over on the East Coast. And so I reached out to the Navy SEAL Foundation and just started talking to them about different ideas and who I was and what I wanted to try to accomplish. And long story short, that's kind of how it happened. The first year it was a quick thing, just putting some things together. And as we grew together, more people got involved, more ideas. Game gloves. Adidas started making special cleats for me to auction off, and
hmm
it just kept growing. And then all the money goes back to the families of the warriors, and especially the fallen warriors. People forget that when these guys are killed and die, there's still wives and kids and children that need to be taken care of.
Most definitely.
So it was very important for me to do the little I can to help these people. They're the ones that sacrifice on a day to day basis, and they're the ones that put their lives on the line for somebody like myself to be a pro for 21 years. And so you can't thank them enough. They don't ask for any recognition. They don't want it. They can't have it. But it's just a little way to say thank you very much to them.
For sure. And now retired, John. What made you start your own goalkeeping academy? Is it to give back to the community?
Yeah, it's definitely to give back. I mean, the other thing is I don't know anything else. I've been doing it for all my life, so I know goalkeeping, I know gloves, I know training, I know all that. So
Yeah.
for me, it was to give back to the kids because at different points of my career, whether I was with the youth national teams or, playing club or college or even early pros, there was always somebody that put their arm around me and kind of showed me the way, whether it was on the field or off the field, how to be a good pro and how to do things the right way. So it was only natural that I wanted to turn around and start giving back to these kids. Not all of them are going to be pros, but some want to play in college, some just want to be better at the club level, and that's fine. So for me, it's just about trying to take each individual goalkeeper that we bring into our academy and make them better.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And now, obviously, off the field, retired. What does Jon like to do? Do you like spending time with your family? Do you like going to hockey games?
Yeah, Jon's still trying to figure that out a little bit. After 21 years of having a routine, and everything revolving around preparing for a game or training or getting prepared for the next season, now's the first time where, and it took me a while, to be quite honest with you, it took me a while to kind of figure out who Jon Busch, the person is, if you will, and not Jon Busch, the goalkeeper.
That's true.
I've started to find my rhythm. I do a lot of coaching. My wife and I spend more time together now as well. I do watch a lot more hockey. We got a minor league team here in town, so it's always fun to go watch them.
Yeah.
And I actually get to go skate more. That's one thing that I didn't do a lot during my career because you didn't want to end up taking a puck or getting hurt or doing anything like that. Yeah. So when I can find some free time, I go play pickup hockey and just get away from the soccer world for a little bit. Because I am very busy now coaching, so that gives me kind of a release to get away from it. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out. But that's kind of what I'm doing.
For sure. And talk to us about the game against Mexico for the World Cup qualifier, because I saw in another interview that it was a crazy environment, So talk to us about that experience.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. And I think back to it now, and it was just like that was only I think if I remember correctly, my third ever national team game. Wow. So in January, I played my first one against Colombia. Yeah. Then I was on the bench for another just friendly a couple weeks later. I think it was Guatemala, if I remember correctly. That was Kevin and Joe, Kevin Harmon and Joe Cannon played that because Bruce was trying to figure out who was going to be the third goalkeeper he brought to Mexico. He had already told me that obviously Casey was going to play. I was going to be the backup. So, I sat that game. We go down to Mexico, and it was everything everybody talks about, But it was really funny to me looking back at it now. It was like, It never intimidated me in the environment. Our hotel was locked off. Nobody could get in other than us. All the crazy stuff that comes with it. Yeah. But it never hit me until I go out for a warm up with the goalkeeper coach, Phil Wedden at the time. And we did. I just did some stuff before Casey came out, and then Casey comes out, and I'm getting the balls ready and getting water for Casey and just doing everything, make sure Casey gets a good warm up in. And maybe 5 minutes in, all of a sudden I just froze and it hits me and I'm looking around and there's 100,000 fans or whatever it is and they're chanting and they're screaming and carrying on. So I called at that time the equipment guy RJ over. RJ, come here. And, what's up, Bushy? What do you need? And I just asked, I got to ask you a question. I said, on the bench, I said, I know you always have extra jerseys in case somebody gets blood on them or whatever. I said, do you ever have extra goalie shorts? And he kind of looked at me with this weird face. He's like, no, what are you talking about? and I said, because quite honestly, I said, I just realized that God forbid, this is a World Cup qualifier. And if anything happens to Casey Keller, I actually got to go in the game. Yeah. I said, and I'm probably going to shit my pants before I even get to the 18 because this is only my third ever game. Yeah. And he thought I was kidding. He's laughing. He's like, oh, that's a good one. I said, no. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, this isn't a friendly. This isn't like, this is a World Cup qualifier. There's a lot on the line for this game. So it was kind of funny. And I mean, I remember just sitting there on the bench, taking it all in. Thank God nothing happened to Casey. Yeah. And part of me was excited and loved the environment, and part of me was sitting there kind of praying, going, God, I hope nothing happens to Casey because this is a lot on this line. So, but it was everything you could ask for, and it was just an honor for me to represent my country, to have Bruce pick me, as the backup to Casey in such an important game, Sure. So it was pretty awesome.
For sure. Thank you so much for your input on that game.
Yeah.
For a kid from Queens, New York, did you ever imagine having 21 years being a professional soccer player and over 500 games?
Never in my wildest dreams. I remember being in college and saying to my goalie coach, Eric Balder, like, I want to play one pro game. Yeah. I just want to make it, right? And the first year when I left Charlotte, I went to Carolina Dynamo. And I got one or two games at the beginning of the season, but they had some senior pros, so I didn't really get much time. But I was just trying to get a game. Yeah. Just a single game to say, hey, I made it as a pro. Yeah. Never in my wildest dreams would I have done anything that I did. Would I made it 21 years? Would I played over 500 games? Play for my country. It just you sit back and you look at it and you go, wow, it's pretty special.
For sure. And throughout your career, could you name a particular game that stands out to you that you could say probably is your favorite game?
I would say there's always a few, right? I don't know if you can narrow it down to one. Obviously, the first one in the MLS. I think we played, if I remember correctly, with Columbus. We played DC United, and we ended up winning 1-0. I think it was raining pretty bad. Echeverry was there. I mean, just the unbelievable DC team that they had. And the thing I remember most about it is not many people knew me in Columbus. And Drulis knew me. He had scouted me in the minor leagues. He knew what I was capable of. Yeah. I had, I think, almost 150 games already in the USL, the A-League at that time. Yeah. But not many people in Columbus knew me. So my first start, we're walking out, and everybody's, wishing each other luck and whatnot. And John Harkes is sitting at the door, and they called me the kid back then. And he's like, hey, kid. He's like, good luck. I said, thanks, Harksey. And as I turned to walk away, he goes, don't shit yourself. And I just started laughing, I'm like, oh, great, thanks, Harksey. It ended up well. We won 1-0, so it was good. So obviously that would be my first ever MLS game. And then each one, because I played for 3 fantastic clubs. So each time I moved, another one in Columbus obviously was the Open Cup final when we won. That was special because LA was beating the daylights out of us, and we held on. And that was my first ever trophy. First time playing for Chicago, even though, it was hard to leave Columbus and get traded from Columbus. But, and then from obviously Chicago to San Jose. And San Jose is another special, very special club and very dear to my heart. So I think every time I moved clubs and just getting that first start under your belt was always special. Obviously, my national team game. To get my first cap and to win 3-0, it was obviously special as well.
For sure. And talking about matches, is there any match in particular that you could probably name probably the toughest? Maybe overtime, PKs, nervousness?
PKs, I never really got nervous because it was more just, if I got lucky enough to get one or two of them, then we had a chance kind of thing. I think that I was always nervous before every game, and if people say they are not, then I don't believe that. I always got nervous, but it was always a good nervous, because I never wanted to let my teammates down. I believe so much in the locker rooms, whether we were having a good season or a bad season. I always felt very bad if I gave up goals, regardless if they're good goals or bad goals. I always felt like I was letting the team down. So I was nervous every game, from my first game to my 500th game. It was always, it was sometimes a relief, to say, okay, we got through it and I played well, kind of thing. Because I care for the guys in my locker room so much. I never wanted to ever let anybody down. But I mean, there's so many unbelievable players that I've played against. Obviously you look at the rivalries that we were part of, or I was part of. It was always Columbus, Chicago, and then obviously Chicago, Columbus. So those were always battles. I just saw something the other day about the game. I think it was maybe 2008 or 9, a playoff game between Columbus and Chicago. And everybody knew going into that game, whoever won that game was most likely going to win the MLS Cup. And I was playing for Chicago at the time. Columbus beat us 2-1. But it was a battle. It was an absolute battle. So those were the games that I remember. There was a series with New England when I was playing for Chicago that we ended up beating them. That was another tough one. And then you go over to San Jose. I mean, every time we played LA, right? It didn't matter if it was down there or up at Stanford Stadium or even in, at Santa Clara. It was always a battle with them. And you look at the players they had, from from Landon's to Keene's to, I mean, you can name them all, to Beck's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was always a battle, and we always knew that, we were in for it. The nice thing was we weren't afraid of them.
Yeah.
And that was always cool. We were kind of the underdogs, which we like. They were the stars, they were the studs, and we were the a little bit of the misfits, if you want to call us that. And we loved it. We absolutely loved that.
Yeah.
So
For sure. Now talk to us about how special was it retiring with the Columbus Crew that gave you the opportunity to debut in 2002.
Yeah, I put a lot of thought into it. Once I talked to my wife and we knew it was time to go, I put a lot of thought into it because, like I said, each club, Columbus, Chicago, and San Jose, they're all very special to us, and there's not one that's more special than the other per se. I mean, they all have a very special place in my heart and my wife's heart. But the more we talked about it, we just said, you know what? We've always called Columbus our home. That's where it started. That's where I wanted it to end. And it was nothing against Chicago. It was nothing against San Jose. I know I've played the majority of my games in San Jose, so that's always very special to me.
Yeah.
I love playing for the Fire with the tradition that they had coming before us. But it was just every time we came back to it, it was Columbus is where it should be. So when Greg and I talked, he was all for it. The Crew organization went far beyond what I ever imagined. And the whole night at the game was just, I mean, it was very special to me, and I needed it. I was at a place in my career where something I had done as a pro for 21 years, and then how many every years prior to that, I was a little bit lost and what to do next, and so I needed some closure because I didn't get it here, so I needed some closure. And they gave it to me, so it was a really special night for me.
That's good. And 2008 comes about. You had a wonderful season. How did it feel receiving the MLS Goalkeeper Award?
Yeah, I mean, it was special. I know that there were a couple of years I became runner-up. I never really got involved in worrying about individual stuff.
Yeah.
Because I knew that if the team was successful, you always had an opportunity for individual accolades and individual awards. I never really worried about them. And to say it that year, I didn't do anything special. I did my job, and I was just one part of a team that was very successful on the field.
Yeah.
The players in front of me, guys like C.J. Browns and Armises and Logan Paws and Chris, all those guys, they were the ones that did all the dirty work. I just did stay back there and did my job and tried not to screw things up. So, even though it was an individual award, it was, I accepted on behalf of the guys in front of me because they were fantastic.
And now transitioning to trophies, you have 3 trophies under your pedigree: 2 Supporter Shield and 1 U.S. Open Cup. Could you name a possibly favorite trophy? Or is one obviously unique in each way?
Well, they're all unique, right? Because if you look at the Supporter Shield, and I think the players always, no matter what year it was, always looked at the Supporter Shield as how important it was because of you had to do it throughout a season. It was consistency of a team.
Yeah.
Where with the MLS Cup, a team can get hot at the right time and get to the finals. But to win a Supporter Shield from the beginning to the end, you've got to be consistent.
Yeah.
And that was always special with the Supporter Shields. Is the consistency that we showed as a team. So those were special to me in that aspect. The Open Cup was special because, again, it was my first cup. I was just starting to create, myself in Columbus. I had established myself as a number one.
Yeah.
Like I said, that game, all I remember is we were getting Pelted, and we got 1 goal kind of against the run of play. And I ended up being man of the match that game. So it was kind of special in that aspect. The other thing I remember about the Open Cup, a good friend of mine, Brian Mazanoff, it was his first ever trophy.
Wow. And
him and I were really close. And so to be able to hand a trophy to somebody who had played in a World Cup and done as much as Brian did, not just for the Crew, but in his whole career, was another special moment for me. I remember sitting in the locker room afterwards, with him, and I still get tears. I get tears to this day about it. It's just watching this grown man, and I was young at the time. I didn't necessarily understand it, but to watch a grown man cry over a cup, and then I realized how important it was and how hard trophies are to win.
For sure.
You don't understand that when you're a kid, but as you get older, you realize, gosh, these trophies are hard to win. A lot has to go right. Whether it's on the field, off the field, with luck and all that has to go right for you to win trophies.
For sure. And 2005, you finally get your debut with the national team.
Yeah.
You guys beat Colombia 3-0. Talk to us, about that experience, and you also get a shutout.
Yeah. Again, it was an unbelievable experience to represent my country. I had done it with the 17s, I had done it with the 20s, but to do it at the full level, knowing that again, my brother served for this country, so it was special for me. But I honestly didn't expect it, because I was in camp with Joe Cannon and Kevin Hartman. I think Matt Reese was in, and maybe Nick at the same time. And Joe and Kevin were like the top two guys out of the MLS. So I was, it was one of my early camps. I was just kind of happy to be there, and apparently I did well enough in the January camp that, Bruce picked me over those guys. So it was really special. And again, to represent your country, to do all that. Luckily we won, and luckily I didn't have too much to do, and I got a clean sheet, so it was good.
For sure. And now backtracking a bit, John, you go to college, you play at UNC Charlotte. Were there any other offers from other colleges that you could have attended? And talk to us about your experience playing for Charlotte.
Yeah, so back then I was playing with the under-17 national team, and there were two of us, this other gentleman, Andre Chapoul. We had decided to go to UVA with Bruce. And we had kind of said, yeah, we'll do it. Well, long story short, they made a change in their staff and got rid of their goalkeeper coach at the time. And so I asked Bruce for an extra week or two to look into this guy, because I didn't know who he was. And back then we didn't have internet, so you couldn't just Google who he was. So Bruce got mad at me because I asked for more time. And so UVA was the only visit I went on in the fall. So I was going to UVA. Yeah. Long story short, next thing I was like, okay, I'll show Bruce. I'll start looking at other schools. So I go, it's the middle of January or whatever it was. Yeah. I'm living in upstate New York. There's 4 feet of snow on the ground. Coach from UNC Charlotte calls. I knew it was in North Carolina. That's all I knew. I said, I had no idea anything about it. I went down, fell in love with it. Loved the school, loved the players on the team. There were 7 or 8 New York guys on the team. It was an up-and-coming program that I could help build. They had a fantastic goalkeeper coach, Eric Vaughter. It all just fell into place. Yeah. And so for me, I made the right decision to go there. I didn't know it at the time, but Eric Vaughter, the goalkeeper coach there, had always had professionals coming down and training with them, preparing, for the USL season. Yeah. And I didn't know that when I signed, but my first winter there, after our first fall season when we were training, all of a sudden these guys started showing up, and they would train with EB, and the more I was around it, that's really where I said, hey, I could, I'd like to do this. And that's kind of where the whole idea of being a pro kind of started.
Wow. A lot happened. That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now you spent several years in the A-League, which was possibly the USL, correct?
I think they called it USL, but the league itself was called like the A-League, because they had A-League and then Division 3, but I think it was all under the umbrella of USL or something like that. I don't know. It's so long ago, I don't even remember.
Talk to us, about your experience playing for various clubs before, your anticipated debut for the MLS.
Yeah, it was the best thing I ever did. And again, Eric Vaughter was the one that pointed me in the right direction, because when you leave school, all I'm thinking about is getting to the MLS and how quickly I can get to the MLS. Yeah. Now, if I would have done that and I would have, got to DC or somewhere else, I wouldn't have lasted as long, because I wouldn't have been ready. But like I said, EV, he had the plan of, let's get him into the minor leagues, let's get him his games first, so he prepares himself, so if and when he does get the call, he's ready. Yeah. And I look back now and go, that was the best thing for me. I spent 5 years in the USL, I think, 100, 150 games, whatever it was. Yeah. I got the experience that I needed, and it was the best thing for me. So when I did get that call by Columbus, I was ready to go, and I wasn't a rookie, or I wasn't a pro without many games under my belt. So it was it's tough at times, because you'd ride buses for many hours. We used to play back-to-back games. We used to play in Charleston on a Saturday night and turn around and get on a bus and drive to Jacksonville, Florida, and play on a Sunday afternoon. And that's just what we did. We didn't know any better. So it wasn't a glamorous life. I mean, we slept on the bus many nights. But it makes you stronger. It makes you mentally stronger. It makes you appreciate what you have once you get to the MLS. And I look back now and I wouldn't want it any other way. And there were some very special times on those buses, where the boys would come together. I mean, I spent my 21st birthday on a bus somewhere in Canada. I don't remember where we were, but we pulled over and the boys bought me a 6-pack of beer, and just stories like that you can never, never forget, and so there were special times and it was nice because at that time MLS rosters were only 18, so they only had 2 goalkeepers on the roster. So I would go up and back. I would get called up if somebody got injured. I'd sit the bench at an MLS club and I'd go back down. So I occasionally would get the taste where I would spend preseason. I spent preseason with Chicago, DC's, Tampa Bay's, all these teams. So I would continuously get this little taste of the MLS, knowing that that's where I wanted to get to, and it just kind of kept the dream alive. It kept the fire stoked. So it was good for me. It was very good.
For sure. Obviously, hard work pays off. You get drafted by Crew. Talk to us, about signing your first professional contract with the Columbus Crew.
Yeah, so I was playing in Hershey, Pennsylvania at the time, and we were in the playoffs. And the coach, Greg Andrilla, showed up one game. And actually I got hurt. It was a playoff game. I got hurt, of course, but he showed up, and then after the game, he came up to me and we started talking, and I had known Greg from earlier days and goalkeeper camps and things like that. Yeah. And, he said, he's like, hey, we got a spot opening up in Columbus. Would you be interested? And absolutely. Yeah. So, it was the number 2. I think Mark Doherty was retiring, that year. So he said, okay, we're going to draft you, whatever, supplemental draft or whatever it was back in the day. Yeah. So I remember saying, great, awesome. He left and it was a couple weeks away. So I remember just sitting in the apartment with my wife and just watching the computer, and keep thinking to myself, well, Greg told her they were going to draft me. They're going to draft me. And then a draft pick would go by and it wasn't my name. I was like, wait, they said they were going to draft me. Luckily it finally happened. Yeah. And it was great, to, like you said, to put in the time and the work and everything I needed to do to say, okay, now I've made that next step, and now I can see what I can do at the MLS level. So it was definitely a great day.
For sure. And obviously, after various years with the Columbus Crew, Chicago Fire finally signs you. Talk to us, about playing for Chicago, playing with the Guatemalan Marco Pablo Papa, and obviously the Mexican icon, Capitamo Blanco.
Yeah, 2 great guys. So I spent 5 years in Columbus. The last 2 were tough because that's when I did my ACL 2 years in a row. And then Ziggy came in and wanted to make some changes, and so Chicago picked me up again on one of those waiver drafts or whatever they did back then. And so I went in there, and that first year was more about me just getting my knee right, getting my health back, and it had been 2 years of I played, I think, 10 games. I did it the first time, and then I played 11 games the first time, then did it again, played 10 games the second. So it was just about getting a full year back underneath my belt, and kind of getting back in the rhythm of everything. And so I did that, had a good year that year. And then, Guatemala came in, Papa came in, and just 2 great players. And obviously with Guatemala, like the whole circus comes to town. And we started going to preseasons in Mexico, and I tell you what, you're talking about a man who is worshipped by the fans. It was just a different level. I mean, everywhere we went, there was thousands of people just hanging outside the hotel trying to see him. Wow. And one night, I think Rafi and we decided we were going to go for dinner. Leave the hotel and go for dinner. Him and I just walked through the people like nothing. But Guatemala couldn't even come down to the lobby. So it was just to see something like that was pretty special. But 2 fantastic players, 2 great characters, and they were a big part of our teams back then.
For sure. And still talking about Chicago, talk to us about the locker room environment, with those types of players.
Yeah, that was I started hitting my late 20s, early 30s, and I started really understanding the importance of a locker room, and how important that was. In my early days in Columbus, we had all older guys, and I was the young kid. So I was just happy to be there. We had Maisenoffs and McBrides and Mike Clarks and Mike Lapp, all these guys who just police the locker room by themselves, you know, and we followed their suit. But when you got to Chicago, you know, I started understanding a little bit more. And like I said, you know, CJ Brown's, Logan Paws, Chris Armas, best captain I've ever played for, hands down. And I played for McBride, I played for Maisenoff, I played for, you know, Wondolowski, but hands down, Chris Armas was the best captain. I to this day, I still call him captain every time I see him. And just the story that I always remember about that, and we had such a great group of guys, even though we never quite won everything. We never quite got over that last little hump, but we always had successful years. But the cool thing about those years was if somebody texted and said, "Hey, I'm going to dinner. Does anybody want to join me?" It wasn't like 2 or 3 guys would show up. You would go 9, 10, 12 guys deep.
Wow.
You know, because everybody just wanted to be around each other.
Yeah.
We loved spending time together with each other. And it was so cool that you know, that these things happen. And like I said, I was at that age where I started really understanding that the importance of having such a great locker room and how that led to on the field success.
For sure. I completely agree. Like, even with me in my high school, it's always good to have a brotherhood within the team, because that just makes you as a team stronger, you know? But
absolutely.
I completely agree with you, John. Thank you for that as well. And now transitioning forward, you signed with the Earthquakes. You know, you spent 5 seasons there, where you are considered a legend. What do you think made that core group in 2012 so special?
Well, you know, first comes the first. I remember and I got to tell this story because it was funny as hell. But my wife and I, you know, we're sitting in Chicago, and we had been told, okay, you know what, we're going to put you on waiver draft, whatever. So we were actually going to go visit our friends in Columbus for the weekend and just get away from it. It was the very first weekend of the MLS season. Yeah. And my agent calls me basically right when we were going out of town, starting to drive over, and he says, "Hey, John Doyle's going to call you from San Jose." And I just remember saying to him, "Why? They got Joe Cannon. What the hell do they need me for?" You know, and he's like, "They want you." He goes, "Just talk to him. He's going to call you in 5 minutes." I was like, "Okay." So 5 minutes later, Doyle calls me. Yeah. You know, we chit-chat for a few minutes, and they said, "Yeah, look, you know, we've worked it out." And you know, the thing I like about my time in San Jose, we were always kind of the underdog. We were the smaller club. We were, you know, nobody expected much out of us, and we embraced that role. You know, the Goonies, the Misfits, the underdog role, and you know, again, just like I talked about in Chicago, our locker room wanted to be together. You know, we wanted to hang out with each other, and there were always pranks going on. There was always something going on in the locker room. But you know, when we got out on the field and it was time to go, I mean, you know, it came together, you know, and you know, so it was a special time, and you know, obviously winning what we did then, and but I don't think anybody expected it out of us outside the locker room, you know, and it just all came together. So it was a great time.
Everybody for looking at my video. If y'all liked it, please like and subscribe. I will be releasing more content soon, but like I said, if you guys could speak your word about me to your friends, colleagues, parents, cousins, that would be grateful. Thank you so much. See you next time.